I'm Kristen Mulholland. I'm with IEG, and we're here today at World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., and we've just concluded a panel presentation and very in-depth discussion about the future of higher education in the context of a rapidly changing global economy. I'm honored today to be here with Eva Egron-Polak. I hope I've done that correctly. She is the former Secretary General and current Senior Fellow at the International Association of Universities. It's such an honor to have you here. I'm very curious to know what you thought of today's panel presentation, and most importantly, what was the most important takeaway for you from today's conversation?
I think the most important takeaway for me has been the fact that the bank and the IEG are questioning, seriously questioning and examining and re-examining the role that the World Bank plays in higher education globally. I think it is important in the context of continuously changing and very rapidly changing context in many countries to re-examine and to question. And I'm really very, I think, pleased with the fact that they have invited external stakeholders, if you will, to take part of that discussion. I think it's just a very healthy approach to a very complex set of issues in which no one has all the answers, but I think that questioning the role of higher education in the global economy and beyond, which is what I would suggest, is really important today.
Thank you. And one of the very interesting discussions that resulted from today's conversation was about using employability as a metric to determine the success of a particular higher education program or approach. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Thank you. Well, I think that first of all, higher education is composed of a variety of institutional types. They're not all the same. And I think applying a single indicator like employability is a little narrower than I think is beneficial. In particular, I think if we look at university education, a straight linear connection to employability is perhaps not the most appropriate matrix or indicator. Universities are educating for the future, and the future in many different roles that a graduate can play. So it's very difficult to say a graduate should be employed within 6 months or even a year in whatever position he or she has chosen, because that linearity doesn't always happen. Another reason why employability for me is not necessarily a very good indicator of quality is that higher education institutions do not control the labor market. They do not supply the jobs. And in many countries, and I live in France, and that's an example, employability is a real issue, and there's a lot of unemployment. The universities can only do so much to prepare for that labor market. So I think there needs to be a breadth of indicators, not a single one, and perhaps not even this as the main one for universities.
There was also an interesting conversation about creating employment adaptability to meet the future needs of the labor market, that the universities are at a time where they could transform themselves to encourage more lifelong learning. In your opinion, is this a good direction, and how could they allow this to happen?
Well, I think universities already do work a lot in lifelong learning, and I also think that they are very preoccupied with the fact that we don't know what the labor market will look like, what the jobs will look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So the institutions, higher education institutions, need to keep in mind, and I think do, that their graduates need to be adaptable. And one of the things that they need to be able to do, no matter where they go, is to continue learning. So I think that is something that could be one of the indicators of quality. How well do we prepare our graduates to be continuous learners.
As you know, IEG just recently conducted an evaluation of World Bank Group's support to higher education. In your opinion, what can institutions like the World Bank Group do to support countries as they realign and they shift their higher education priorities to meet the changing demands in the labor market?
I'm going to be very short in this one. I think that one of the most important things that the World Bank can do is ensure that when they work with government, that their conversation is inclusive of other stakeholders. Too often, I think, the government-to-government discussions are leaving out some of the key stakeholders, not just universities, but also the employers and civil society in many countries. So to me, looking at a demand-driven policy in many countries, it would be really important that that demand is designed in a consultative fashion rather than by government or policymakers in government alone.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you especially for being such an important part of the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me.